There are moments in life that arrive so quietly you almost miss them. And then there are moments that divide your life into two parts: the person you were before and the person you become afterward. I never imagined that waiting alone in a small cafe on an ordinary sunny afternoon would become the turning point of my entire life. 30 long minutes passed while I sat there feeling embarrassed, convinced I had been stood up. I had already reached for my wallet, ready to leave forever when the cafe door slowly opened. A young woman walked inside, looked directly into my eyes with an expression I still remember to this day, smiled with quiet sincerity, and softly said, "You have kind eyes." In that single heartbeat, every doubt I had carried for years suddenly felt lighter. Before we continue this unforgettable journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Soulful Tales too. Your support helps keep stories like this alive and reminds more people that hope often arrives when we least expect it. My name is Rowan Mercer, and if someone had asked me that morning whether I believed in destiny, I would have laughed politely and changed the subject. I had spent years believing that life was nothing more than a collection of responsibilities, disappointments, and quiet routines. I worked as a librarian in a small town where people knew one another by first name. Every day I watched strangers borrow books filled with adventure, romance, and miracles, while my own life seemed trapped between dusty shelves and silent evenings. It wasn't a bad life, but it was painfully predictable. After my father passed away and my mother moved closer to my older sister, the little apartment I rented became quieter than ever. Silence has a strange way of making people question their worth, and over time I began to wonder if perhaps I was simply meant to live unnoticed. The blind date had not even been my idea. My coworker insisted that I deserved to meet someone who appreciated my gentle nature, instead of hiding behind books. Every weekend, she spent weeks convincing me before finally arranging the meeting with someone she described as thoughtful, intelligent, and genuine. Even as I agreed, I expected nothing. I wore my cleanest blue shirt, polished shoes that had not left the closet in months, and arrived 15 minutes early, because punctuality had always been one of the few things I could control. The cafe was filled with warm daylight pouring through tall windows. Children laughed over melting ice cream. Elderly couples shared quiet conversations, and the smell of fresh coffee drifted gently through the room. I chose a table near the window and watched people passing outside, each one apparently certain about where they belonged. Every passing minute made me feel more foolish. 10 minutes late seemed understandable. 15 became uncomfortable. 20 felt humiliating. By the time 30 minutes had passed, my confidence had completely disappeared. I imagined the staff quietly, feeling sorry for the lonely man waiting for someone who would never arrive. My untouched coffee had already gone cold when I stood up to leave. Then the bell above the cafe door rang. A woman entered, breathing slightly faster than normal, as though she had hurried across town. She wasn't dressed in expensive clothes or surrounded by dramatic music like the movies promised. She simply looked real. There was kindness in the way she searched the room, relief in the way she smiled after finding me, and honesty in the way she approached without pretending everything was perfect. Before offering excuses, before sitting down, before anything else, she looked into my eyes and quietly said that I had kind eyes. It was the first compliment anyone had given me in years, and somehow it reached a place inside me that had been empty for far too long. Her name was Mireya Sloan. She apologized sincerely for being late and explained that on her way to the cafe she had stopped to help an elderly man whose wheelchair had become stuck near a broken sidewalk. Then she stayed longer, because the ambulance needed someone to comfort his frightened wife until relatives arrived. She showed no pride while telling the story, only concern that she had made me wait. Listening to her, I realized that the same kindness I had seen in her eyes was the reason she had been late in the first place. We talked for hours without noticing time passing. She loved painting quiet landscapes, because she believed peaceful places healed tired hearts. I confessed that I secretly dreamed of writing stories but never believed they were good enough. She listened without interrupting, something few people truly know how to do. Every word I spoke seemed important to her, even when I believed it wasn't. As the afternoon sunlight slowly turned golden, I found myself laughing more than I had in years. It wasn't because she told extraordinary jokes. It was because being around her made ordinary moments feel extraordinary. When we finally left the cafe, the streets were glowing beneath the late afternoon sun. Children chased pigeons across the town square while musicians played soft melodies nearby. Everything looked exactly as it had before. Yet somehow the entire world appeared brighter. Over the following weeks, we met often. Sometimes we walked through the botanical gardens. Other times we volunteered together at the community food pantry. She believed that the best conversations happened while helping other people, and I slowly began to understand why. Service stripped away masks. It revealed character more honestly than words ever could. Yet happiness rarely arrives without testing those who receive it. One evening, Mireya admitted something she had hidden from nearly everyone. A serious eye condition was slowly taking away her vision. Doctors had done everything they could, but no one knew how quickly the illness would progress. She spoke calmly, but I could see fear hiding beneath her courage. Painting, the thing she loved most, had become increasingly difficult. She worried that one day she would no longer recognize the faces of the people she loved. Her confession broke my heart. For days afterward, I struggled with emotions I couldn't explain. I feared losing her. I feared watching someone so full of light slowly face darkness. Most of all, I feared I wasn't strong enough to help. Then I remembered the first words she had ever spoken to me. She hadn't admired my appearance or my job. She had simply noticed kindness in my eyes. If she could see that in me before we even knew each other, perhaps I needed to finally believe it myself. Instead of letting fear control us, we created memories. We watched sunrises from quiet hills, collected wildflowers during afternoon walks, visited museums, listened to street musicians, and filled notebooks with little observations about beautiful moments that many people ignored. Every experience became a promise that beauty could survive uncertainty. Months passed, and although her eyesight continued to fade, her spirit never did. She began teaching painting classes for children, explaining colors through emotion instead of perfection. She encouraged shy students to believe mistakes often became masterpieces. Watching her transform fear into generosity changed me forever. Inspired by her courage, I finally started writing the stories I had hidden inside for years. They weren't tales about superheroes or impossible adventures. They were stories about ordinary people discovering extraordinary hope through simple acts of compassion. The local newspaper published one of them, and readers wrote letters describing how the story reminded them to forgive old friends, visit lonely parents, or thank forgotten teachers. For the first time, I realized words truly could change lives. One crisp autumn afternoon, we returned to the same cafe where everything had begun. We sat by the familiar window while sunlight painted warm patterns across the table. Mireya admitted that faces had become blurry now, but she smiled and said she still recognized me immediately, not because she could clearly see my features, but because kindness has a presence stronger than appearance. Tears filled my eyes before I even realized I was crying. That afternoon, I reached into my pocket and held a small, wooden ring box I had carried for weeks. It wasn't an expensive ring, but it represented every promise my heart could make. I asked her to spend whatever future awaited us together, whether life offered sunshine or storms, clear mornings or uncertain nights. I wanted to face every season beside her. She said yes before I had even finished asking. Years have passed since that unforgettable day. Mireya's eyesight eventually became extremely limited, yet she never stopped creating beauty. She began teaching art through touch, texture, imagination, and feeling. Children adored her classes because she helped them discover that the heart often sees what the eyes cannot. I continued writing, and every story carried a small piece of the hope she had planted inside me that first afternoon. People often ask how we met. They expect an exciting story filled with dramatic twists or unbelievable coincidence. Instead, I tell them about a late arrival. A cup of cold coffee, 30 minutes of disappointment, and one simple sentence that changed everything. Sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with perfection. They begin with patience. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Soulful Tales. 2. Your support helps these heartfelt stories reach people who may be waiting for their own second chance. Special request, before this story ends, please comment, "Kind eyes can change." lives. We'd love to know where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. Looking back now, I understand that I almost walked away 30 minutes too early. If I had left the cafe even 1 minute sooner, I would have missed the woman who transformed my understanding of love, courage, and kindness. Life rarely follows the schedule we expect. Sometimes delays are not disappointments. Sometimes they are quiet miracles finding their way to us. Whenever difficult seasons arrive, I remember that sunny afternoon and the woman who saw goodness in me long before I could see it myself. Her eyesight faded with time, but her vision for life remained clearer than anyone I have ever known. She taught me that compassion leaves deeper footprints than success, that gentle hearts possess remarkable strength, and that hope often enters our lives, wearing the ordinary clothes of an unexpected stranger. And even today, whenever someone asks me what true beauty looks like, I don't think about perfect faces or glamorous moments. I think about a warm afternoon, a delayed blind date, a quiet smile, and a voice filled with sincerity saying, "You have kind eyes." That was the moment my life truly began.